a mysterious abandoned village, and an ancient curse. When the curse is broken, evil creatures are released, and those who make mistakes will face terrifying consequences. The story begins with a group of young people planning a vacation trip to the Langkawi Islands in Malaysia. As the region with the largest number of islands in Malaysia, this sea area not only has pleasant scenery but also many undeveloped islands, and everyone is full of expectations for this trip. However, just as they were about to check in, Yus ran into Yaya at the entrance, and the two had never gotten along back in school, often clashing with each other. The moment they met, Yaya couldn't help but mock him. Seeing Yaya's arrogance, Yus refused to back down, but fortunately, Kat stepped in and separated them in time. After checking in, the group quickly changed into beachwear and headed to the seaside, enjoying the sunbathing. It wasn't until dusk that they reluctantly left the beach and went to a seaside food stall, planning to have some drinks and relax. But just as everyone was having fun, Kat turned around and saw a woman standing next to Ben. Noticing Kat's gaze, Ben thought she was upset about his smoking, so he quickly threw away the cigarette in his hand. In fact, Kat was born with the ability to see spirits, able to notice things others could not. While they were halfway through dinner, a fire performance began on the beach, and they all put down their food and gathered around the flames. Seeing Kat not far away, Kai took out a bracelet he had bought earlier. It turned out Kai had always secretly liked Kat, but never had the courage to confess, and now he wanted to give her the bracelet. However, when he walked over, he saw Kat chatting casually with Ben. Afraid of rejection, Kai had no choice but to quietly put the bracelet away. The next morning, Kat and the others had arranged to go diving, but when they reached the dock with their gear, they found Yaya and her group waiting there too. It turned out they had booked the same boat, and although it was awkward, it was too late to find another speedboat. Ajan, an enthusiastic old man, introduced them to a diving spot that was not only great for fishing, but also filled with coral reefs. Once everyone was on board, Ajan started the engine, and after half an hour of bumps across the sea, the boat reached a cluster of islands. At that moment, Kat noticed a small island nearby that looked strange, from a distance resembling a skull. Everyone was intrigued and wanted to dive there, but Ajan firmly refused. He explained that this sea area was filled with dangerous islands, and to prevent accidents, the tourism center strictly forbade visitors from going ashore without permission. Although they felt a bit disappointed, the group didn't take it too seriously. Sailing past several islands, they soon arrived at the diving area Ajan had recommended. The underwater scenery was indeed stunning, with colorful coral reefs and countless fish, and everyone had a great time. But while playing, Kat suddenly got separated from the others, and then a dark mass drifted toward her in the water. The sudden sight startled Kat, causing her to swallow seawater, and she fainted instantly. In her daze, her mind was flooded with images of primitively dressed people fighting violently around a bonfire. Fortunately, Kai was nearby and saw Kat drowning, so he rushed over immediately. With everyone's help, Kat was pulled back onto the boat, and thanks to quick rescue, she soon regained consciousness. Although there were a few minor incidents, no one paid much attention, and they kept playing until evening before finally leaving the waters. On the way back, Ben mentioned the strange island he had noticed earlier, saying it didn't seem special, and he wondered why the tourism center forbade people from going ashore. Curious, everyone turned to Ajan, who then shared the island's dark history. About 200 years ago, an indigenous tribe lived there. But one night, something strange happened, and by the next morning, every single villager had mysteriously vanished. Decades later, when a tourism company took over the area, they planned to develop the island with facilities and campsites. But soon after, strange events began again. First, workers went missing, then others claimed they saw a black creature in the forest. That creature attacked the workers and devoured them. Fearing damage to the company's reputation, the incident was covered up, and the island was abandoned, completely off limits to visitors. Though the young travelers were well-educated university students, they had all heard stories of the supernatural, and sometimes it's better to believe than not. But just as the group was about to end the conversation, Yaya suddenly picked a fight with Yus. Yaya deliberately provokes Yus, saying that if they dare to camp on the island for one day, she will never bother her again. Yus didn't want to respond at first, but Yaya's boyfriend Desmond deliberately stirred up the conflict, calling Yus and his friends cowards. Hearing this, Kai, Ben, and the others grew upset, and soon the argument escalated into a heated quarrel on the beach. To prove he wasn't a coward, Yus accepted the bet. To prevent Yus from backing out, Desmond immediately rented a small boat on the spot. What none of them realized was that because of this reckless bet, they would all end up trapped on the island. The next morning, Desmond drove a small boat himself and took Kat and the others to the island. At first, no one thought anything of it, But as the boat neared the island, Kat saw a strange dark cloud hovering above, yet no one else could see it. The distant cloud made Kat uneasy, and although last night's legend was unsettling, they still did not believe the island carried any kind of curse. As soon as they set foot on the island, they began to play by the shore, and Lily even pulled out her phone to start a live adventure stream. Afterward, they ventured into the island, and not far from the beach, in the forest, they discovered some crumbling stone statues and collapsed thatched huts. The statues were covered in moss, giving off a chilling vibe, and Dow's guessed this might be the village of the indigenous tribe from long ago. Curious, he wanted to take a closer look, but as he approached the statues, he noticed something strange. At the entrance of the village, 2 statues were blocked by a rope stretched across, but he didn't pay it any mind and casually untied it. Seeing the decayed village made Kat feel uneasy, but before she could speak, Kai and the others had already stepped inside. When they entered, they found the village in ruins. Nothing left but vines and weeds. Then Kai spotted a wooden hut nearby that was still somewhat intact, and he pushed the door open. To his surprise, while the hut looked broken from the outside, inside it was still preserved, and he assumed it had been built by construction workers years ago. Since they had not yet found a place to camp, the hut seemed like a good option. They inspected the hut and found the main beams still sturdy, so instead of pitching tents, they decided to stay in the hut for the night. With everyone working together, the hut was quickly cleaned up, and after a long day they were exhausted, so after a simple meal, they each went to sleep. But in the middle of the night, Kat faintly heard strange howling sounds outside, and half asleep, she opened her eyes to see what was happening. The eerie sight startled her, but when she opened her eyes again, she saw her friends packing their bags. Calming down, Kat realized it had been a dream, and she thought no more of it. Leaving the forest, they returned to the beach, where according to the plan, Desmond was supposed to pick them up before noon. But they waited for hours, and Desmond's boat never showed. Lily wanted to call and ask what was happening, but when she took out her phone, she found there was no signal on the island. Yet, she had live-streamed yesterday, so why was there no signal today? But the strange occurrences didn't stop there. Lily opened her photo gallery to check the videos from yesterday, and she found a bizarre recording. Yet everyone had been asleep at that time, so who had taken it? The unexplained recording made Lily uneasy. They waited by the beach until dusk, but Desmond still did not come. An angry Dows thought Desmond was deliberately playing a trick on them. Luckily, the shore provided plenty of food, so they caught some seafood and made dinner. Meanwhile, at the resort center, Desmond and Yaya were drinking with friends, and Yaya urged Desmond to go pick them up. But Desmond had no intention of going, as he planned to leave Kat and the others stranded on the island. Passing by, Azan accidentally overheard their conversation, and when he learned that Kat and her group had gone to the island, he flew into a rage. He quickly tried to contact Kat, but her phone was off, so Azan sent a voice message, warning them not to stay in the village in the forest. But with no signal, Kat and the others never received the warning. Since Desmond never came, the 6 had no choice but to return to the hut again. While everyone rested, Dows took use into the nearby grove to spend time together.
Huh?
But caught up in the moment, they didn't notice that Dows accidentally kicked over a pile of stones, and as the pile collapsed, black smoke rose from a cave not far away. Back at the hut, Kat was suddenly awakened by chaotic noises. She got up and looked outside where she saw flickering firelight. Stepping out, she witnessed a terrifying sight. The once decayed hut now looked brand new, and outside stood many villagers. They seemed to be holding some kind of ritual, and an old man walked to the village entrance, untying the rope from the statues. At the moment the rope came loose, a woman appeared from behind a tree. Before Kat could react, the woman leapt into the crowd and began attacking wildly. The villagers scattered in panic, but the woman was far too fast, giving them no chance to escape. Then her eyes locked on Kat and she raised her claws, lunging at her. But when Kat opened her eyes again, she found herself back in the hut. It had all been another dream. Dream after dream left Kat shaken, and she thought maybe the forest's oppressive atmosphere was causing them. Meanwhile, in the grove, as Dowse stepped aside to relieve himself, he suddenly felt something grab him, dragging him into the darkness. Watching Dowse vanish, Yus froze in shock. She thought he had rolled down a slope, but when she looked closely, she realized there was no slope at all. Sensing something was wrong, Yus quickly ran back to tell the others. When they learned Dowse was missing, they all followed Yus into the grove, but no matter how hard they searched, there was no sign of him. Ben recalled what Azan had said about the terrifying creature, and he suspected there might be a black bear or some other large animal on the island. He felt the forest was dangerous, and they shouldn't split up, but wait until morning to continue the search. In a cave deep in the forest, the missing Dowse slowly regained consciousness. As he opened his eyes, he found himself bound tightly by vines. He pulled a flashlight from his pocket to look around and was startled to see many strange objects hanging inside the cave. Then, from his left side, came a faint sound. Meanwhile, Kai and the others searched the forest all night, but still could not find Dowse. After discussing, they decided to first find a way back to the resort center and then call the police for help. They went to the beach to see if Desmond had come, and as soon as they arrived, they saw Ajan's boat. They thought they could finally return. But just as the boat was about to reach them, an unbelievable scene happened again. Watching the boat explode into pieces, everyone was stunned, and they realized there was something wrong with this island. As they struggled over what to do, Kat turned around and suddenly noticed that Mark had vanished without anyone realizing. The strange events, one after another, made Yus feel deeply guilty, and if she had not argued with Yaya, everyone would not be trapped on the island. But what use was regret now? At that moment, Kat remembered her dream from the night before, where the villagers untied the rope at the entrance and the spirit appeared. Could that rope have been some kind of seal? Lily and Yus agreed it made sense. And though they were unsure, they still returned to the village entrance. They picked up the rope and tied it back again, and Yus even used tissues to clean the statues on both sides. Kat then noticed a pile of stones nearby, and vaguely remembered that the villagers seemed to have buried something there. She walked over to check for clues, but the moment her hand touched the stones, the ground began to shake. Realizing something was happening, Kat grabbed a stick from the ground to dig, and Ben and Kai came to help. But as soon as they began, a chilling wind swept around them, and after digging only a short while, some white objects appeared in the pit. Kat leaned closer only to find it was a skull, and the moment she touched it, her mind was suddenly flooded with visions. She saw a man and a woman inside a wooden hut, and as they rested, angry villagers burst in. It turned out that Molly's husband Anne was not from the tribe, and the tribe had rules forbidding marriage with outsiders. They seized Anne and tried to drive him away, but in the struggle, Anne accidentally fell and struck a pile of stones, causing a fatal accident. Realizing he was dead, the villagers dug a hole on the spot and buried him there. Filled with hatred, Molly walked into a cave where she offered sacrifices and performed a ritual. In the next moment, Molly transformed into a Kuntilanak and returned to the village, slaughtering the people. From this vision, Kat finally understood everything. The reason the villagers had suddenly vanished was because they had killed Molly's husband. Molly had cursed herself at the cost of her soul, turning into a terrifying monster, and anyone who stepped onto the island would be hunted by her. It was clear now that the one who had taken Dowse and Mark must have been Molly, and the only way to leave the island was to break the curse, but they were not shamans, and they had no idea how to do it. Kat remembered the cave where Molly had performed the ritual, thinking there must be a magic circle, and if they destroyed it, the curse would end. Hearing this, Kai also felt it made sense. After a quick discussion, they decided to search for Molly's cave, and before setting off, Ben crafted a simple stone spear. They searched behind the mountain for a long time but found no cave. What they didn't realize was that Molly was already following them. Through the forest, a wide river appeared before them, and Ben scouted around to find a way across. But the terrain was tricky, with cliffs above and cliffs below, leaving no choice but to swim across. As they crossed, the last in line, Lily suddenly felt something pulling her. But instead of attacking Lily, Molly lunged at Ben from behind. In panic, Ben jabbed with his stone spear, and to his surprise, it actually worked. When the spear touched Molly, she backed away. Unable to catch Ben, Molly turned her gaze back to Lily. Just as Ben tried to help, Molly yanked Lily into the water. Watching Lily vanish, Yus fell into despair, sitting by the river and refusing to move. As night fell, the group had no choice but to camp by the river. Kat went to Yus, trying to comfort her and give her strength. But before they could rest, Molly appeared again. When Yus was taken, the others were frozen in shock, too afraid to sleep, forced to stay by the fire, watching the darkness all around them. After a night of torment, dawn finally came, and just as they were packing to leave, Kat noticed a cliff nearby with a cave at its base. At that moment, Yus's scream echoed from a distance, and they rushed toward the cave. When they reached the entrance, they saw Molly crouched over Yus, draining her life. Ben raised his stone spear to strike Molly, but he was no match for her. Kai tried to help, but he too was struck down. During the struggle, Kat noticed the ritual circle nearby. At its center was a black box, and Kat instantly realized it must be the core of the curse. She opened it and found a doll inside, remembering it was the gift Anne had given to Molly. Seeing Molly's attachment to the doll, Ben understood its importance and thrust his spear into Molly's back. The spear could wound her, but not kill her, and Ben urged Kat to run with the doll. But in a sudden burst of rage, Molly killed Kai and Ben. Seeing the two die tragically, Kat couldn't worry about them anymore. She took the doll and fled the cave. She did not know how long she ran, but eventually she reached a clearing, where she saw a wooden frame she remembered as Molly's home. Before she could react, Molly appeared, seizing Kat by the throat. At Kat's call, Molly stopped her attack, recalled a scene from the past, and regained her human appearance. Kat told her the villagers had been dead for over 200 years and that the island was now deserted. Hearing that 2 centuries had passed, Molly was stunned. Kat begged her to let go of her hatred and stop harming others, but Molly ignored her and instead pushed Kat into the lake. When Kat awoke, she found herself back in the moment when she had nearly drowned during the boat trip, and all those who had been killed by Molly were alive again. In the end, the group returned safely to the resort. That was the full story of the 2025 Malaysian thriller, Pulau. Overall, the movie was quite good, and the terrifying atmosphere was well done. So if you enjoy this type of film, you can check out the original. That's all for today's video. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.